Really looking forward to this podcast today because I'm talking to Ricky Bodsford from Bass 365, which is this growing social media company platform. What would you like to call it, Ricky? What's the best way to describe your platform?
Hey, Greg, what's up? I think, first and foremost, it's a website, a bass fishing information website where we keep up with all things bass fishing. The social media is definitely a part of it. But yeah, I mean, I just love bass fishing, right? Kind of like you.
Exactly. So I figured, why wouldn't we want to have a great conversation with each other, talking about all things bass fishing, all things social media, the whole landscape of the internet? Let's get to it.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
All right. Well, Ricky, I'm just going to prelude this podcast by saying we had a major power outage here in Minnesota, and we actually were conversing for about 30 minutes, and then the power went out everywhere. We were having this great, in-depth, very passionate conversation, and all of a sudden the lights go out, and my computer stopped, and we've had to restart. So I just thought we'd let everybody know that we're actually restarting. We got to go through everything that we talked about in the first 30 minutes and just act like it's all new.
I don't know if the power going out was a sign that maybe we shouldn't do this. I don't know.
Absolutely not. I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in stuff like that. I think this podcast is very important. The world needs this podcast. So yeah, just first let's talk about, and I realize we've already discussed all this stuff, but the first 30 minutes of this podcast, it's just, we're going to have a lot of practice with. So I think this round right here that people are actually able to listen to, the first time we did it was a little rough. Now it's really going to be good. So how we know each other. So I film Major League Fishing events, and Ricky is at like every event, and he's running around getting all kinds of content with his phone, talking to anglers. It's incredible how much energy you have and how much content you're getting. It's like rapid fire questions, and then boom, this stuff's out to the internet. I'm amazed at your work ethic.
Well, man, I really appreciate that. I think that I enjoy what I do. It's fun, and they say if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And I would say most of the time that's true. By this time of the year, it's getting a little rough. I mean, we've had a long season, a lot of time away from home. But, so I basically shoot for my website, bass365.com. And I freelance for several other companies and do a little personal work for some anglers that are just more my friends than anything. And I think we talked about earlier. You guys, the camera operators, y'all have the toughest job out there. I mean, it's not only are you out in the elements all day, you're lugging the camera, and sometimes those boat rides are not enjoyable. So my hat's off to you for doing what you do, because you make it all what we see on TV, and you make it look easy.
Well, that's like the biggest reason why I wanted to talk with you, because I knew that you were eating up with bass fishing. I'm eating up with bass fishing. I've been a huge proponent, supporter. I just ever since I was probably, 14, 15, I've got into bass fishing because I watched the Bass Masters on TV, and then it's just from that day forward, it's just been I can't get enough of bass fishing. I love, I started as a multi-species angler, but what was so cool about bass fishing, what that early Bassmaster show showed me, is that fishing could also be competitive. So I just love that aspect of it, and so knowing that you're passionate about it. What was the catalyst for you to get into the line of work that you're in now? Like what made you go, first of all, how did you get started fishing? And then how did you get into, the line of work that you're in now?
Yeah, so as a kid, it was, it's from my earliest memories. That's all I can remember. It's fishing with my grandfather, my dad, and then I think it was like 1976. They came out with the 1976 edition Bassmaster Classic. It was either a Terry or a Ranger bass boat, and I just fell in love with that thing. And I can vividly remember that photo in the Bassmaster magazine. From that day forward, I think I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that. I knew that I wanted to compete at some level. And, fast forward to my late teens, early 20s, competed at a pretty high level locally and, did well. And started a little website called basseast.com, basically to hopefully fund my fishing. And it's grown into this monster. And Greg, one thing I'll tell you is that this website today and for the past 10 years, it's not about me. It's not about what I do, how I produce content. It's about these anglers, because I feel like they're so freaking talented and overlooked as true athletes. It's hard to catch a bass. It's hard to catch a bass the way they catch bass. That's for dang sure. And I feel like I try to do a good job promoting the anglers, the guys that need to be everyday names in a household.
No doubt. And so the thing too, that it's one thing to be eaten up with bass fishing, to if you're going to pursue a career in it, to be good enough. And I agree 100%. Like I feel that anglers, the top anglers, have just as much talent as any professional athlete, in a mainstream sport. But one thing that is true is that you've really got to, it's one thing to be an excellent angler. You also have to be willing to live that lifestyle on the road, And both you and I, we kind of live that lifestyle. We're at the tournaments. I'm filming. I'm basically, for an event, I'm there, 6 days of filming and then 2 days of travel. So it's 8 days I'm basically away from home. But what a lot of people don't understand, to be, to compete at that level, to fish all those tournaments, you are on the road a lot to be able to do that. But even just to document those tournaments, to be a part of that, you're on the road a lot. How for you, how often are you gone?
Man, this year has been pretty brutal. I think in the month of July, I was home 2 days, or maybe it was August. I don't even know. But it's very demanding. The travel time is extremely demanding. I'm blessed to have a family and wife that support it and understand that it's my passion. It's what keeps me going on a day-to-day basis. But the other side of it is we've got one more tournament and we're pretty much done. So, that's a good thing, right?
Well, it does. One of the things that I like about, what I do, it's grueling work. It really, really is. I mean, it's grueling, but I love to fish. So being out on the water, and immersed in the sport that I love so much, all of the challenging aspects of it make it easier for me because I care about this sport so much and I love being outside. I cannot work. I've tried working in an office. It just is not. It's just not good for me, So, and the other thing too, man, is like what's nice about Major League Fishing is I pretty much have my schedule mapped out for the year. And I know, time that I'm going to have off, whether I want to fill it as, as a freelance guy in video, if I want to try to fill that time with work or for, projects, personal projects like this, for instance, doing a podcast, it's really, really nice. So when I've got that really heavy camera on my shoulder and it's, say 92 degrees out with stupid humidity, I think about that. I go, remember, Greg, this is all, there's a benefit to it. It's something I'm willing to make that trade. I'm willing to go through those difficulties for the real pluses that this job provides. So I think we're eaten up with it so much. We love fishing so much. We love the sport so much. We love all the cast of characters so much. All the potential negatives are really worth it.
I totally agree. And, one thing that a lot of people don't see, and I'm not going to speak so much about you and I, is what these anglers go through. I mean, it looks really glamorous on the outside. Nice wrap truck, nice wrap boat. But it's way more to it than that. The amount of work that these guys put in is insane. And then you run into stuff like breakdowns on the road, problems when traveling, problems in lodging. It's way bigger than what you see just looking at it. And I think their tenacity is amazing. Not to mention the group of guys that we work with. They're awesome human beings for the most part. They're just a great group of guys, and I'm proud to be associated with them and call a lot of them my friends.
No, that's the thing too that I really enjoy about what I do is that as a fan of the sport, we're immersed into it. You could look at it if you were a fan of Major League Baseball or the National Football League, and being basically injected into that thing and being
right.
all surrounded by players and being on the field, we're fully immersed in it, So as fans, we're professionals. Don't get me wrong, but also as fans and historians of the sport, it's really just I sometimes step away, and try to look outside of myself sometimes, and I actually do it often. I go, this is pretty darn cool, and I'm really blessed to first of all, I would you agree that there's some people that don't have passions in life, and
100%. They just try to muddle through and be satisfied. Well, one thing I'll tell anybody watching this: never be satisfied with anything you have, because you can always do better. You can always, shoot a better video. You can always, ask better questions. In my case, but it doesn't matter what it is. And I know we talked about before the sport of bass fishing compared to other professional sports, and man, I have to put it right up there with any of them. Baseball, basketball, football. These pro fishermen are athletes. What they do is hard. They make it look easy when you're watching that hour-long show, but it's tough. It's a tough deal.
Yeah, I've always kind of I've made fun of the idea. Maybe there needs to be a different term for fishing, because than athletes. I don't know. That's probably, something that we don't need to get into right now. But I will agree with you. They work their butts off. And it's definitely a difficult job. One of the things in before the power cutoff, we got into whether, I've been frustrated that this is still, it's because I care about the sport. I'm frustrated that it isn't mainstream, and maybe it'll take another 50 years before it'll be mainstream. Who knows? Maybe 100 years. I just want it to happen in my lifetime, I guess. But I don't know. What your thoughts on that? What do you think needs to happen for the sport to be more mainstream? I said before the power cutoff. That I like the idea of there being kind of tiers, There's every boat has a 250 horse outboard on the back now. Every boat's like a 20, 21 footer, 3 graphs up front. No other sport has the amount of, if someone's a really great basketball player, they can just get right into it. It isn't that expensive, to buy a basketball. I mean, with fishing, to compete, you got to have a boat, and then to compete on a higher level, you've got to have some electronics and whatnot. So I would like to see there to be really kind of more of a really minor, kind of like a farm league kind of system where it fosters potential, younger people coming into the sport that might not have the financial capability to compete at that highest level right off the get-go, or even at the mid-tier. Just something more of a kind of tier system, even based on equipment, that as you go up those tiers, you have a little bit better equipment. So right at the very top, you've attained the very top. That's when you get into the 21-foot boat, the 250 horse outboard, all the electronics, but until then, you're proving yourself. You don't have to have all that cash outlay in the beginning. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, I think that the sport is better now than it's ever been. I think the products we're getting from Bassmaster and what you guys are doing over at Major League Fishing is incredible. I think we talked about earlier that there'll always be something about that 5-fish weigh-in that people want to see. It's exciting. Last week at La Crosse, Chris Johnson, lost by a couple ounces. The weigh-in was intense. And then the way that it's done at Major League Fishing, to me, makes it more like a basketball game where somebody's going to lose on a buzzer beater, maybe win, like Bobby Lane won with that cull at Raycrest. I mean, that to me is more like watching a basketball game than anything else. So that takes care of where I feel we're at with the sport. I think it's in great shape. I think we've had the COVID probably did more to get people fishing than anything ever. The competition part of it, it's expensive. It's, almost looks like a elitist sport because you got to have a, $80,000 boat, an $80,000 tow vehicle. And then the equipment, it's just astronomical. But we had Spencer, I was talking to Spencer Sheffield last night, and he made the comment that, if you don't have live or forward-facing sonar right now, you're at a disadvantage and you're not going to win. And then he circled back around and kind of pulled that back a little bit to just go fishing. You need to go fishing every day. The more time you put on the water, the better you're going to get. And I brought up John Cox. I would take John Cox's career. Doesn't use forward-facing sonar, doesn't use sonar. So I think there are ways around it. I do agree that the boats and motors for a guy starting out have gotten out of hand. I don't know what the answer is to fix it because it's all going to be on what your neighbor can afford. If I buy a 20-foot boat, my neighbor's going to go buy a 21-foot boat. So I don't know that there's really an answer to that. Even in the college ranks, you watch these kids in college, they've got the best of everything. I don't know. That might be a whole nother show with somebody a lot smarter than me to answer that one.
Yeah, it is. I love all the new technology. I mean, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's good for the sport in general. But it does bother me that as someone who's young might think that they need all that stuff to compete, and ultimately you need to work on the basics. If you're a young angler, you get those basics down, and just get very comfortable on the water, get comfortable with fish behavior, and just the more time that you can spend on the water, the absolute better. So that really is paramount over anything else. I've fished with terrible anglers that have all the greatest equipment. I mean, absolutely terrible anglers. So that doesn't, just because you have great equipment doesn't mean you're going to be a good angler. But I do think that I don't know, in a utopic world, bass fishing world, tournament bass fishing world, it would be nice to see, like a farm league minor kind of, where it's like they put a limit to the amount. Okay, I mean, back in the day, there was a limit on 150, like an 18-foot boat and 150, horse outboard. I like that idea. Maybe you have a league that's just like just aluminum, and you go on smaller bodies of water, and then that mid-tier, a little bit bigger boats, a little bit bigger bodies of water, and then the top level of professional fishing, big, I mean, whatever, big bodies of water, loaded boats. I mean, I whether that's possible that can even happen, I don't know. I'm a video guy, but I like that. I like that it's that's if I could construct a perfect bass fishing world, that's how I'd construct it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think that I guess that's what they try to do with like the Toyota Series and the Bassmaster Opens and then the BFLs. But you still look at those guys that are fishing those tournaments. They have the best equipment. And I totally agree with you that just because you have the latest and greatest doesn't mean you're going to catch the fish. I know we talked about earlier, I think the one big thing is that it factor. I hate going back to it, but some guys that you can give them a mud puddle and a stick with a piece of string on it, and they have it, so they're going to catch them out of it. You could take me and give me all of Kevin Van Dam's waypoints, and Kevin's still going to beat me every time because he just has it. He's a better fisherman. The biggest advice that I've heard over the years has been, like you said, time on the water, understanding the fish. Going back to the conversation I had with Spencer last night, he said, when I pull up and see fish on my forward-facing sonar, I know what they're going to do. I know what they are because of experience. It's not because of the units. You take myself or you out there with the same units, we're not going to know. We're not going to have any idea what we're looking at. So the biggest takeaway I have from all of this, Greg, is that you got to spend time on the water. It's just like hitting fastballs. The more time you spend in that batting cage, guess what? You're going to be able to hit that fastball a little bit better.
Yeah, no doubt. So I want to kind of turn more to you and how you got started into getting Bass 365 up and running. Why you decided to do this. But I guess first, have you had has most of your career, has it been within fishing? Have you had a typical kind of job, or what? Having a regular job that was like, I gotta get out of this as quickly as I can and do something more, in the fishing realm.
So, like I said earlier, I've always been a fisherman since I can remember. A cane pole and a bobber, and from a very early age. So the majority of my career, I was a Toyota certified master mechanic. I did that for 30 years. I spent 20 years at the same dealership, and it got really hard to make a living. After that last recession, some things changed at the dealership I was working at, and I was kind of fiddling with this website on the side. And it got really hard to go to work every day. And I came home one day, and my wife just looked at me and she said, why don't you try this website thing and see if you can make a run at it? And here we are, I guess 10 or 12 years later. It's a full-time living, and we still got the lights on, so I guess it's working.
So you basically you're a web developer. Did you learn how to build websites just on your own, or how did you learn how to do that?
Just luckily I had some people around me that were good and knew what they were doing, and got me started and are there now if I need help. When I started, I could barely send an email. So yeah, it's come a long ways in a little bit of time. And I think my biggest is strong point is being able to build relationships. And I've been very fortunate over the years to I guess fit in with these anglers and become friends with a whole bunch of them. And we work together and we're friends. And I think that the building relationship part of it is the biggest asset that I have, that's helped me be somewhat successful in this industry.
So what did you, so basically, when did you decide to start Bass 365, and then describe what you do? So, when I'm basically getting paired up with my angler in the morning, so, I film Major League Fishing events, and I find out the night before who I'm going to be filming that day. That morning of the tournament, I find my angler and hop in the boat with him, get him mic'd, and while I'm doing this, here's Ricky running around, and he's got his phone out, and he's getting, he's jumping from one boat, getting content, asking questions. You ask great questions, by the way. And then you hop over to another boat, and you ask that angler questions. I notice sometimes you're getting content for a company, sometimes you're getting content for the angler, sometimes you're getting content from or for Bass 365. Just tell me what all you're doing out there, and then it's amazing. Like I'll check my phone while I'm out on the water, and you've already got that content pumped out there.
Yeah, so it's basically the number one thing for me is Bass 365. That's how I make my living. That's what supports my family. And it's just a content website where some of it's homegrown content, some of it's press releases from Major League Fishing, Bassmaster. I have some great partners. I will tell you that out of all the partners I have, there's only 2 or 3 that haven't been with me since the beginning. Again, it's building those relationships and growing to know the people within the company and becoming friends with them. And I don't say that lightly, because there's a lot of trust that goes into what I do, especially on the angler side. Building a relationship with these guys where they trust you to do the right thing and not do anything to get a bunch of views that could cause problems later on. And believe me, there's some stuff there, but I would never do that. So that's part of it. Then the other part of it is I freelance for a bunch of companies, a lot of major players in the industry that just, I just create content for them, daily content from the events, whatever they need. They send me a list usually before the tournament, and I just kind of work through that list as the tournament goes on. As far as individual anglers, I have a couple that I do some work with, but it's just more just because we're friends, and they need some help with it. I'll help them. The anglers are unique individuals, and you have to almost know how to handle each one of them. It's like I'm trying to think of something to compare it to, like a dog. I'm a big dog person. I got a big old chocolate lab that's my buddy, but a dog, you can walk up to a dog and tell, hey, that dog might bite me, or no, that dog's nice, I'm gonna pet it. You almost have to learn the anglers like that. Like, hey, all right, this guy over here, I'm not talking to him today. And another guy, you may know that all right, I can really just lay it on him today because he's wanting to talk. And it's taking a lot of time to develop that rapport with the guys. And a lot of times I'll stay with them during the tournaments, and it's just there's not another job like it. That's for sure.
Yeah, you've developed. You can read people, and it's I've worked with Van Dam for a long time. I've gotten to kind of learn his idiosyncrasies, and and anybody. The great thing about what I do specifically is just, I mean, I'm spending so much time on the water with these guys. Like, I'm spending a whole day with them, and we're having to almost like kind of do a dance. Like, okay, well, I got to kind of learn how he fights a fish, where he goes in the boat, and then also just like whether he wants to, I can't talk that much, but when the camera's not on, is this person want to be conversational? There's a lot of like give and take and kind of just, feeling, each other out. Like, okay, what kind of person are you? And are you okay with me asking a lot of questions or, for the camera? I try to be like a mouse for the most part, because I know this is their office. It's my office too, but what other sport is there? Is the camera guys right there and can really, more than any sport, negatively, impact the participant, that's competing in the sport. So I try to be like a mouse. Todd Faircloth really gave me a compliment one time. He's like, I really enjoy working with you because you just, I don't move around much. That rapport is so important, whether you are out filming with them or like yourself, just working with them, getting content from them, and them trusting that whatever you're putting up there is in their best interest. It's an important aspect of this work.
Sure it is. And I don't know of any other sport where the camera guy or somebody in my position gets that close to the athletes. And I don't mean physically. I talked to Cody Meyer, just left my house like 10 minutes ago. He comes and stays here. Bobby Lane, it's a whole bunch of them that it's just different. It's just different than, I'm sure the guy that films the football stuff doesn't go hang out with Tom Brady after they're done filming, but we do that all the time. It's truly a unique sport that I'm blessed to be a part of. But you guys, back to the camera operators, you guys have the toughest job, because I could only imagine you're out there filming and Kevin loses a fish because you get in the way. Oh boy. That's got to be running through your mind. It has to, right?
Well, I know. I got a buddy. He lost a fish for an angler. I'm not going to say who my buddy is or what angler. And the angler got mad at him. Like, dude, I do everything in my power. I do not want to be a part of the game. As far as I will document the game, I'm all about documenting the game. And what I do, just along with what you're doing and all the other camera guys are doing, is very important. And we should, it's not like we should be looked at as second-class citizens. Our job is darn important to this sport. You got to have people out there covering the sport. But we are, it's our job to document it, and to document it well. That is my job. I'm not supposed to be affecting the action at all. So that's how I look at it. But I wanted to ask you, with what you do, in just social media in general, and also your website, just everything that kind of encompasses what you're doing, what do you find to be the most enjoyable aspect, but also like what's the hardest aspect about it?
The most difficult thing is probably getting up the morning of the final day. Easily the most difficult thing, because the one thing about it, you and I don't get a day off. The anglers at least get a day off. So that's pretty difficult, especially if you do 2 weeks back to back. You're wore out by the end of that. The most enjoyable thing is just working with the guys. They're fun. The questions, the interaction there it's a lot of fun. And on a serious note, the worst part of what I have to do is the uploading. That is the most tedious, and it only takes one spelling error to make something go really bad. Internet can be a challenge at times, but generally there's really no downside to it other than just, at the end of the week you're tired. That's really the only downside to anything that I do.
Yeah, I mean that for me too, as far as doing a podcast or I mean, I can enjoy editing, but I'd rather be outside filming than inside editing, Podcasting, I mean, I enjoy having these conversations. I really enjoy. I think that's the beauty of podcasting. You can have these, and Joe Rogan has really shown this, is that these long form, long conversations, there is people do want to hear these. And I love conversations like this, where you just bounce ideas off people and just hear other people's perspectives and just, you're like down. What conversations are really, if you want to kind of equate it to a computer, like, the internet, it's like downloading or what would it be? It'd be like uploading and downloading information, like, I'm just hearing, what your perspective is. You're hearing what my perspective is, and you can learn things. And then to have people listening to that, and getting stuff from it, is fantastic to me. I really love that aspect of podcasting. The thing that I don't like about it, and it's just, until I make money doing this and can hire someone, and that might be 100 years from now. It's the part, it's the writing all the descriptions and doing all just the stuff on, typing on the computer just to get everything out. All, the conversations are awesome, or the out, if it's for a video that I'm filming, out there filming and getting great content, that's great. That's fun. But having to edit it all down and that is the aspect that isn't as much fun, and it would be really great to find someone to do it for me sometime. But again, that is 100 years from now. I'm not expecting that to happen. Although if you want to tell your friends out there to listen to the podcast and listen, go to Angling Uploaded, go to Bass 365, tell all your friends so that one day I will make enough money that I will be able to hire someone. Go ahead. I mean, I'm all for that.
We'll do our best to make that happen. Maybe we can make it happen together. I've found over the years it's hard to find the right person, and it all looks good, it all looks fun until you actually get out there doing it, and then it's like, wow, this is a grind. And yeah, I don't know that I really like that word grind, but it's a grind. I mean, I said before that by the final day, I'm tired. I'm ready to take a day break and then get back to it.
It's a grind, and I get the sense that you're a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist. So as much as I talk about having help, I really kind of like things to be a certain way. So I don't know if I would even be good at having someone else like do any editing or anything else. So I kind of like being a one-man band. So this is probably the way that it needs to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's tough to find, somebody that is going to put the same effort into it as you are. And that's what I always struggle with is, if I'm working, same with my kids, if I'm working, they're going to be working. It's all about the effort you put in. And I feel like what you get out of it is what you put into it, which takes me back to the fishing part of it. I've heard it from so many of these guys over the years that whether you come from a lot of money or you don't have any money at all, fishing is a sport where you can excel and be successful if you put the effort in. It's not about how tall you are, how fast you can run, anything like that. It's about putting that effort in. It may take a guy like me a lot longer than it would a guy with the it factor like you to get there, but with enough work and preparation, I can get there. And I think that's what's unique about this sport as well. No matter how hard I work, I'm never going to play in the NBA, but if I really set my mind to it, I could fish the Bassmaster Elite Series or the Bass Pro Tour.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. So, what is, with Bass 365? What are your plans for? What are your goals for the platform in the future?
So that's a tough question because the platform itself is for nothing but to promote the anglers. It's another outlet for the anglers to promote themselves. I told you when we talked about doing this, very uncomfortable on this side of the camera. I don't like being on camera. I love shooting the guys. It's awesome, and I think that the general public doesn't really realize just how special these anglers are, because it's, again, not easy. You got a guy, I think I said this earlier, you got a guy watching a golf tournament, and to me, fishing is much harder than golf, because when you set that golf ball down, it's gonna stay there. When you set it on the tee, it's gonna stay there. When you go to hit it, it's not gonna move. Tie a string to that golf ball, and every time before you swing, let me jerk the golf ball. That's kind of the way I see fishing, because you can have the mother lode located and go back the next day, and hey, they might not bite or they might be gone. It happens all the time. So I think that my goal is to really showcase these anglers and their talents, and maybe open a few eyes to just how good they are. And long term, that's tricky, because I've got got a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this, and I'd like to find the right person one day to take it over, and kind of let me just run it from the background, and hopefully that'll happen. If not, Greg, I don't have any idea. I don't even think about it. It's hopefully a long ways down the road.
I hear it. You're talking about the anglers. Is there a particular angler that you enjoy working with more than the others? Do you have a fondness for any one angler out there?
Man, I really don't. They're all great guys in their own way. They're all different. They're all unique individuals, and I'll say that Cody Meyer is probably one of my best friends. In the world, we've been friends for 20 plus years, and yeah. But overall, they're all great to work with, and I enjoy working with all of them. There might be a couple that I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go shoot with him. I really don't want to do that. But yeah. Again, no names, but it's not.
Yeah. I guarantee you that it's. I probably know who those anglers are. We probably agree 100% there.
And I think that if you had that conversation with 10 guys that do what we do, the list would be pretty daggone close to the same.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So who is the hottest angler right now? And I'm not talking physically, okay? Who's the angler that, I would, if I'm going to throw an angler in there, it's going to be Dakota Ebear, and that's not.
I'm the guest. I'm supposed to go first.
Oh yeah, I know, right? I'm sorry, I had to do it because I feel really lucky to have done a podcast with Dakota like a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, and before he just like really blew up, So I'm sorry, that was kind of rude.
Yeah, that was really rude. But Dakota is very special, man. He is he's the real deal. He's very special, and another story of didn't come from a bunch of money. He worked his butt off to get where he's at. And man, I think Spencer's going to be a handful for them over at the Bass Pro Tour next year. 100%. That format, catch all you can catch, is gonna fit right into his style. So I'd have to say Spencer. I think Dakota, man, if Dakota ever learns how to win, I don't even know what to say. He's been like 6 second place finishes this year or something like that, 5.
Well, yeah, it's bound to happen. It's just like the odds are. You know how this sport is. You fish that consistently. You're gonna, and the guy knows. I've worked with him. I've worked with him when he's done really well, And he's got, I don't know if it's because he was in rodeo or where he's just competitive. He just like, I would be I know myself. I would be like, and a nervous wreck. And it's just like, he's just got the demeanor. You know what I mean?
It's the it. I'm telling you, you'll learn about this it now that we've talked about it. They've all got it. It's just what level. I look at Aaron a lot. Aaron and I were really good friends, and Aaron won his fair share, but he had a heck of a lot of seconds too. Dakota, what can you say about the kid? He's young. He told me the other day how many years he had been pro, and I mean he's got a late start. I think he started later than most, and he's just got he's got it, whatever that it is. I don't know. You figure it out. We'll bottle it and sell it and be rich.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. What's your approach to like coming up to an angler? Let's say you haven't met Dakota before. The first time working with Dakota, let's say, before. How do you approach a guy like that? Someone who's just like on fire, right? And you've never worked with him before. How do you approach him to get content?
How do I approach him? Generally, I lead with hey, I'm Ricky Bass 365, and I'm shooting for one of their sponsors. And that usually perks their ears up right away. I do some stuff for Major League Fishing as well, and that tends to grab their attention pretty good. But without that, I just go up and introduce myself and say, hey, here's who I am. This is what I do. Can we get something? It's gotten to a point now, excuse me, where anglers, camera guys, boat officials will say, hey, Ricky, come on, let's do a video. And that feels kind of cool, But yeah, just, generally I just try to be myself. And, I think everybody sees that, I'm there trying to help them. So, for a guy to say, yeah, I'm not going to work with you, that's on them, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And especially since really, you're providing a service to them that's beneficial to them. So it's really in their best interest to give you content. So speaking of content, I always thought that the internet, when the internet first started, right, it would be kind of decentralized. It would be like, oh, you have your own website and everybody would flock to that website and boom, you'd have the traffic there, right?
Right.
It's not really what has happened, right? So we've got the Facebooks, we got the Instagrams, we got the YouTube, and people go there and you put your content on those platforms. I don't really like how that's turned out, honestly, but hey, that's kind of the system that we're living under. Of those platforms, and you're on there, you're on all those platforms. What do you think is the best platform out there, or the best, platform to be on right now?
Wow, that's I think you have to be on them all. I think you have to be on them all, plus have a web presence. And one thing that I did about 3 years ago, we developed and launched an app in the app stores, Bass 365 Live. Which, instead of having to, you can get it all right there in one click on that app. It takes you to everything that we're doing right there, to the website, to the most recent upload, to the live cast shows, to all the social media platforms. But I think that there's not one that if I had to pick one, I don't know that I could do it, because they all have their audiences, they all have the good points and the bad points as well. So I think if you're going to do it, just for instance, TikTok is probably the hottest thing out there right now, and it's kind of worthless. In my opinion, the stuff that's mixed in with it is not stuff that I want to see. It's tough. It's a tough environment. I guess if I was I couldn't pick one. I just couldn't do it. You got to be all in on all of them.
Yeah, and you look at TikTok and it's just crazy how it can just suck you in with those videos, the most dumb videos, just constantly just sucking your time away. Some stupid video of someone in like Singapore doing something stupid and someone in Australia doing something stupid, and they're doing the same stupid thing that the person in Canada's doing because it's trending, and we're all doing the whole world of stupidity going on.
So I think that for me, this is just my thought process. I'm more interested in the quality of the content and the quality of the viewer. So if I put a video out on TikTok or Instagram or whatever the platform is, or YouTube, and it doesn't get 1 million views or 100,000 views, I'm not that stressed about it, because I know that the people that are watching it are genuine viewers that want that product. If that makes sense to you. That's why I think Facebook, a lot of people will tell you Facebook's dead. I think for me, I do some work for a boat manufacturer, and they get huge views on TikTok, huge views. Their average demographic, I think, is something like 13 to 23 or something like that. Well, or their most popular demographic, that 18 to 13 to 38, whatever it is, they'll never buy one of their boats. Over on Facebook, they may not get as many views, but they're guys our age, guys that can afford to buy the product. And I think that that's more valuable to get 1,000 views there than to get 100,000 views on a platform that the user will never be able to buy the product. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's important.
Stuff are a little bit different because, mom and dad can go to Walmart and buy the kid a pack of worms, but they're not going to buy him that $900 Steve spinning reel.
Right. So I know your time is limited. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. I've enjoyed our conversation immensely. I did want to, if you have a little bit of time, I just want to ask you 2 more questions.
Sure, let's roll it.
So there's a lot going on in bass fishing, right? I mean, look at the last, 10 years. It's gone crazy. I mean, the trolling motor wars. What do you think the biggest trends have been in the last 10 years? If you had to point to the number one trend in the last 10 years, and what do you think it's going to be in the next 10 years?
Oh, wow. So I think the side imaging and forward-facing sonar are probably the biggest things that's ever happened, in recent history. I think one other thing I think that's grown like crazy that we could probably have a whole nother show on is the kayak fishing world, and how big that's gotten, how much that's exploded, and how much money's there. A guy can go buy a kayak. He might not be able to buy a 21-foot Ranger, but he can buy a kayak, which leads to a whole nother different set of problems. But anyway, I think in the future, so in the past, these tournaments always had big weights in the spring, and then after that, they kind of went down. The technology and the graphs and sonar have made guys realize where those big fish go. That was always the question, where do all the big fish go? Well, now they know. I think what's going to happen over the next few years, the fish are going to become conditioned to the technology, the forward-facing sonar. I think they are in places they already are. I think seeing how the guys adjust to it. Does it go back to a deal where the guy with a flipping stick and a frog starts dominating tournaments again? I sure hope that, because I'm a fish the bank kind of guy. But I don't know. I think the forward-facing sonar and the side imaging has got to be the biggest change probably in my lifetime.
Do you think, as far as score tracker and that technology, to be able to know how all the other competitors are doing on the body of water, do you think that will become more accessible to, the weekend angler, weekend tournament fishing? And do you think that could open up more possibilities for bass fishing?
Man, I sure hope so, because love it or hate it, the catch, weigh, and release is the best thing for the resource. Whether you'll ever see it on a weekend angler type basis, I don't know. It'd be nice if they could do it and figure it out. But there's so many, especially this time of year, the fish kill rate. They can say what they want to, but a lot of those fish that are returned alive end up dying. And we got to protect the resource. I think the catch, weigh, and release is the way to do it. Or catch, weigh, and bring your biggest bass in if they want to have a weigh-in. I don't know if you remember the Toyota Texas Bass Classics.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Conrad.
Yeah. I'd actually filmed a few of those for sure.
To me, that's the best way to do it for the resource. It still allows the weigh-in. Still, you'll still have some crowds there. The guy gets to hold the fish up, but it's not not there. A lot of fish are getting killed, especially this time of year up north. At some of the smallmouth tournaments, the carnage, even before they're released, is unbelievable. And then, I know the guys do the best they can to take care of them, but it's hot. It's a long boat ride. They're catching them out of deep water. If they just were able to let them go right there on the spot, it would definitely help the resource. So I'm a huge proponent of the catch, weigh, and release, the score tracker. As far as using it for a weekend angler, who's going to watch it? I mean, it may help the fishermen know, but I don't know that they would get that much viewership. But I do really feel like the catch, weigh, and release, and they could easily do it because that's what they do with the kayak fishing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's got to be, I think just to protect the resource, and, if fishing becomes more, popular, it just makes sense that you'd have to protect the resource more. And so that catch, weigh, and release, that kind of score tracker mentality or their technology, I just see that as being more of the future. Again, there's obviously limitations, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to see that just get implemented in a greater in a greater capacity, I guess, throughout bass fishing tournaments. I guess that's what I'd like to see.
Right, for sure, because again, I know that you've been in enough weigh-ins. I've been in enough weigh-ins to know that the fish are taking a beating. We had I live on the James River in Richmond, here in Richmond, and every week when they have a tournament at the ramp here by the house, it's the next week the fish you're catching are they're just rough. I mean, they're the ones that live. So I don't know. It makes me kind of feel sorry for the poor little guys.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. I know you got to go. Last question. What is the future of pro bass fishing? And this is controversial a little bit. For bass fishing to be mainstream, can there only be one professional league?
The future of bass fishing. I think the future's bright. I think more and more people are getting into it. I wish some of the technology would go away, but that's just me being old and not wanting to learn. I think that there has to be one tour. I really do. To make it totally legitimate, there has to be one tour. And I could go on for hours about this. I think that I think there has to be one tour. I don't know how that happens, but I think there needs to be one. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I believe it as well. I think having two tours, and I'm not ripping on Bass, I'm not ripping on MLF. Obviously, I'm partial to MLF, but these both of these tours are just beating the crap out of each other, taking money from each other. And
Right.
you can't, it's just, I hate seeing it. It's just ridiculous. And then, I'm with bass. I'm with them. It's, as a fan of professional bass fishing, I wish that would get sorted out. But Ricky, I really appreciate your, go ahead, brother.
One thing to add to that, to the average guy watching this podcast that may not know a whole lot about bass fishing, or maybe does, the industry looks giant, but it's really small. It really is. It's small. It's only, a certain amount of dollars to go around. And right now it's being split between bass and Major League Fishing. And I guess you could say the National Professional Fishing League's got their foot in the door a little bit. If you took all that money and put it together, right, took all that money that's going to the 3 leagues, put it into one league, then you got guys fishing for, not that they're not fishing for serious money now, but you got them fishing for some real serious money.
That's right. That's absolutely right, and it frustrates me to all end. I'm 46 years old. I've been eating up with this since I was 14. I just want what's best for the sport and what's really best for the anglers. And I'm in complete agreement with you. One tour, but Ricky, really appreciate it, my friend. Great conversation. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, let's do it again, man. I enjoyed it. I think we got some work to do together.